Live stream.
What is up, Cryptosomniacs? This is Jason here today with a live interview. We've got the Nursetoken staff here. These guys were kind enough to invite us to the Athletes versus Cancer event that they sponsored last Saturday. Did a little video edit of that, which you may have seen, and wanted to just bring them onto the channel and actually talk about the project a little bit. So I've got, if you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves. Is audio good? You can hear everything? Are we good to go?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, great. I'm Cherie Kloss. I'm the CEO of Nursetoken. Josh Clayton.
Hey, Josh Clayton, COO.
Very good. And we've also got Edwin on the line. And Edwin, would you care to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Edwin Marcial. I'm the CTO.
Awesome. So yeah, we chatted with all of you guys while we were there, I remember chatting with you, Edwin, and Snay, talking about a number of different things while we were out there. So great to have you guys on today. Appreciate you coming on and making time. And let's just go ahead and jump into it. Here, I'm going to pull up the live chat because we've got some members that should be joining us here. So I'll try to organize this so it's not over anybody's face. And let's see if we can get some community interaction here. Oh.
Okay. Yeah, Jason, do you want me to give a little bio on everyone, or?
Yeah. In fact, if you guys want to give a little background on yourselves and start to introduce, and we should have some people start rolling in here momentarily. This is a little earlier than our normal scheduled time, so we'll see what kind of interaction we get, but it should be fun. But yeah, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you came into the crypto community.
Okay, great. So I've been an anesthetist for 18 years, working as a healthcare professional here in the Atlanta area. Worked at various hospitals all over Atlanta and did a lot of contract work, which is agency work, on-demand type contract work that's either for a day or it could be multi-week assignments. And so that's how I got into this space, was trying to figure out a better way of doing the whole process of getting booked for various shifts and getting paid. So came up with Nursetoken and brought in a few partners. Actually, the main company is called SnapNurse. That is a core company that I first came up with.
Right.
And that is an on-demand platform to help book contract nurses or agency nurses on demand to fill empty shifts at hospitals, and that's here in Atlanta, and it's live. It's 2,000 nurses and multiple hospital contracts. Some of the contracts are 150 hospitals deep, but we're in revenue and we're doing very well. We're here in Atlanta and now California, Virginia, and now scaling out to Texas as well.
That's fantastic.
Thank you. And my partner Jeff Richards of SnapNurse, he used to hire contract nurses, so he and I initially started SnapNurse together. Brought in Edwin Marcial, who has helped us build our booking platform, and Edwin, and then Josh Clayton has been with us at SnapNurse too from the very start. He was with me when it was just a deck, so he was probably the first guy ever in SnapNurse alongside me, and we built that company together. So in the process of SnapNurse, we have to credential nurses, hundreds of nurses every single week. And we're looking at all these different platforms to try to credential nurses, and none of them were adequate, just not adequate in terms of security or just not being complete, et cetera, et cetera. So Josh came up with the idea of doing a blockchain credentialing system, which has become Nursetoken, based on some of his experiences in the crypto world. So Josh, introduce us to the crypto world. If you want to tell a little bit about your experience in crypto, Josh.
Yeah, sure. Hey, this is Josh Clayton. I started I have a law firm in Atlanta, and we do a lot of startup work and all sorts of different types of deals. I ended up investing in a company called Red Pulse through a good friend of mine out of China, and that was 2 years ago. And I'd been in the deal about 2 years, and John Hall, the CEO, called us up one day and said he was going to do the first ICO on the NEO platform. And so as an early investor, we were allocated some RPX at the time. It's since changed. Yeah, since then. And so at that point, that helped hasten along my crypto enthusiasm, and have been very interested in the space and active since then, learning about it both from a business standpoint and from the legal side, and putting a lot of time into trying to make Nursetoken a big success.
So tell me about that a little bit. You guys decided to, I mean, you've got the SnapNurse thing. Sounds like that's got pretty good adoption going on. I'm assuming that you'll hopefully be able to port some of those users over to the Nursetoken platform. What led to wanting to tokenize it and put it on the blockchain versus keeping the centralized app version? Specifically, I mean, I know you said you had a little bit of interest in cryptocurrency, but is it just primarily like many of us, you did well early and were like, I should learn about this, or what decided to make it move over to the blockchain? Like, what advantages are you seeing?
Sure, I'm going to let Edwin Marcial handle that. He's our CTO, and I want to give you a little background on Edwin. He was the former CTO of Intercontinental Exchange,
yes.
a $30 billion company. He was there, I believe, 14 years or so, and exited and got involved in a number of startups, got involved with SnapNurse, and then began with us on this journey with Nursetoken. So he's got a wide range of experience and contacts, and so we brought him into this project, and it's better to let him handle it since he's the tech guy. So, right. Edwin, can you handle that question?
Sure. You guys still hear me pretty well?
Oh yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, I guess for me, whenever I've spent some time here in the last, well, actually, the first time I got involved thinking about Bitcoin and blockchain was when ICE, my former company, we acquired the New York Stock Exchange, and that very first meeting, this is like 6-7 years ago, we were talking about launching Bitcoin contracts back then. So that's when it really got me first interested in looking at Bitcoin and blockchain, and then earlier this past year when we were looking at thinking about doing it for SnapNurse and Nursetoken, that's when I really started kind of diving in, trying to really learn about it and understand it on a deeper level. But in any case, I think when I think about what makes what makes a good application or scenario or use case for blockchain, there's 4 areas I think about. Security, obviously, is the big one. Is data that you're dealing with, does it need to be secure? The other one is trust. Do you want to take trust away from a centralized service and put it in the hands of the network? And then the other couple of things are rewarding people through tokens, and then distributed ledger. And so when you think about what Nursetoken is, we're really talking about taking data, credentials for nurses, things like background history and where they went to school, degrees, any kind of certifications, drug tests, that kind of data that's pretty sensitive, private information. So obviously you want that to be secure.
Right.
The other part of that is you want to make sure that when you're doing it, when you're working with these big hospitals and hospital organizations and surgery centers, that they have to. Today that process is very cumbersome. It's very paper intensive. There's a lot of it's replicated over and over. But with a thing like Nursetoken, now you can do it one time, have it on a distributed ledger that people can access through APIs, and then most importantly, they can trust it. They can trust that because that data is on the blockchain, it hasn't been tampered with, it hasn't been altered, and it is what it is, and it is what we say it is. And so, it goes beyond just trusting SnapNurse or Nursetoken or any single entity, but really trusting that the technology is ensuring that the data is accurate, it's valid, it's been validated, it's up to date. And so that's why we feel that blockchain is the right technology for Nursetoken.
And do you see any potential hurdles for adoption? I mean, it seems to me that again, you guys have a pretty good existing user base or potential user base with the SnapNurse platform, and probably have some pretty good inroads in the medical community to try to get it adopted by hospitals, et cetera. So what would you guys see as like big hurdles to this becoming successful? And this could go for any of you guys. What specifically do you see as barriers to overcome to be able to succeed, so this can gain more widespread adoption?
Yeah, I'll take a first crack at that. I think that anything you're doing these days today is going to be, when you talk about blockchain, especially in the enterprise, it's pretty cutting edge still. So it's and it's such an evolving and emerging technology that there's always going to be inherent risk in it, and so. So just by that nature, it's going to be a challenge to get people to be adopted. I mean, this is something when I built ICE in the early days, we took some chances on some emerging technologies, and I think a lot of times, if you're smart and you take the right chances, then those bets can pay off for you. But I think that's always going to be a challenge. I think as more and more people are familiar with the technology and are comfortable with it, then I think that those risks can be mitigated. I think one thing that I see for us that can be a benefit is going to be that as we build this out, we're going to make it so that it's pretty user friendly, right? So that users can access it, and they don't necessarily need to know that there's blockchain behind it. It's going to be part of a bigger system.
Yes.
That's got a very good user experience, but has blockchain doing its role in terms of validating data. So it won't be so much that they have to, if we do it right, which we plan to do, it'll be a very seamless experience for the end user.
I think that's an important part of adoption, because I think by and large the general public could care less whether it's Chase Bank or the blockchain or whatever it is that's securing their information. They just want to know that it's easy to use and that they can feel secure with it. So I think that definitely is a big component of it.
I think one more thing I would add to that is just the process of educating the nurses in the hospitals on the tokenized model, and not to be scared of it. We plan to overcome that by, as Edwin said, making it user-friendly. And in this case, we're somewhat gamifying the credentialing platform. So as they upload their credentials, as they update their credentials, they get rewarded in tokens, almost like a game. And so if they can see it as these reward tokens and not be scared of it, and then use those to redeem, whether they hospitals can earn tokens by verifying, and they can use those to redeem to get free access to the credentials, and as if they were like airline points or things like that. So just teaching them that not to be scared, because I think some of them might say, "Oh, crypto, I have no idea what that is." Sure. I think if you educate them and help them understand exactly how and why this has value, that'll be. And we've already started that, by the way. We've had multiple nurse meetups to explain to them the process and how it works, so that they don't get scared. We've had education, a lot of education and videos being made to help them not to shy away from it.
Yeah, I was reading through some of your materials, and I remember there was, I can't remember exactly where I saw this statistic, if it was on the website or maybe in the white paper, but I remember seeing something to the effect of you guys had surveyed a number of nurses, and it seems like overall they were pretty receptive to the potentials for blockchain technology to portability of their records, I guess would be the way to say that. I think, again, if they're understanding that effectively these are rewards points, as you put it there, that they can use towards So that, in fact, why don't we get into that a little bit? Tell me a little bit about more of the utility of the actual token. Obviously, you would use it to be able to access information from hospitals, from nurses. Tell me a little bit about your tokenomic structure there. Let's get into that a little bit.
Sure. So the nurses would be able to earn tokens by going into the credentialing platform and actually uploading the credentials. And this is really crucial because I guess a lot of you may not understand how long and the hard process it is to credential a nurse, or for a nurse to even start credentialing, because it is a 3 to 4 week process. There are 97 documents of different sorts. There's all kinds of information. It just can take a long time to get all the documents organized, and every time they go to a new hospital or a new agency, they have to do this whole process again. So this has greatly put up the barriers for any nurse that wanted to work, let's say, on demand or in the gig economy, because the idea of having to do 3 to 4 weeks of paperwork every single time you want to go to a different hospital is just too much for any caregiver to really tackle. To give you an example, Kaiser, they don't even share their data within one hospital of Kaiser, LA Kaiser, and then Orange County Kaiser.
Oh,
I mean,
I
they have to do
firsthand.
it. Yeah, so they have to do that all. Exactly. And so it's definitely a barrier. And so to incentivize the nurses to earn the tokens by doing their credentialing and keeping them updated, that's really important too. They can earn tokens. And then hospitals, there's a verification process that has to go on with nurses. They have to verify their work verification. There's also education verifications, license verification, and a background check. And a lot of these can be integrated with other blockchain systems, and we're actually looking at those APIs and different systems now. But if a hospital were to get a list of nurses as well that worked at their hospital, and they could participate in the verification processes of these nurses, then they too can earn tokens, and they can use those tokens to access nurse credentialing files that of nurses that they want to hire. So there could be this really interesting ecosystem where everyone participates and benefits from the circulation of this token. And as we get wider and wider adoption with a limited supply, we believe we can keep the token, a true utility token, circulating and keep its value.
That makes sense. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it that hospitals were earning. I was assuming they would be, purchasing tokens, and you would hope that it operates that way. But that does make more sense that they were going to be able to earn it. So effectively, it's almost working like a Binance coin for traders on the exchange, right? Like if people are utilizing the coin, they're getting reduced transaction fees or access fees, I guess, in this case, if they're accessing the information. Is that an accurate way to say it?
Yes, I mean, we are giving the hospitals and surgery centers the ability to just buy straight token,
sure,
and not participate. But with all the hospitals trying to reduce costs, I can see them being really excited about getting a huge discount for what they already have to do, which is work verifications anyway. So they're just participating and getting rewarded for it instead of having the headache of answering, hundreds of phone calls about, did so-and-so work here? Did so-and-so work here? I mean, it took me 3 months to get credentialed somewhere because I worked at a hospital in Alabama, and they didn't answer their phone for weeks to verify my work verification. So this is going to revolutionize the way that onboarding occurs. And by decreasing the time to onboarding, you can create a gig economy by which nurses can indeed work from place to place because their credentials are already updated and active on the blockchain and can be accessed instantly.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was so I have a buddy whose wife is a nurse, and they took some time after they got married to just go travel. They drove down to the tip of Patagonia, and he's an IT guy, so obviously he can work remotely as long as he's got internet. And that was the first time I'd heard about the concept of traveling nurses. But she was working along the way, but I had no idea that it was so many hurdles to overcome in the process. So I'm curious now to know how far they had to reach out ahead of time to try to set up jobs. And like, that's kind of almost unrealistic to hope for if you're like, all right, I know in 3 months I'm going to be down there, but there's no way that the hospital knows for sure that they have a job or not. Or is that inaccurate? I mean, you say that there's a global nursing shortage, so is it pretty much a guarantee that if you've got the skill set and you're like, hey, I need work, that as long as you go through the credentials that you can get that work? Or what do you think about that?
Well, there's a whole bunch of questions in there. First, let me just define a nurse agency. Once you work for a nurse agency, you can indeed work from place to place, but most nurses belong to several agencies because not all agencies have hospital contracts where they want to work.
Sure, that makes sense.
So it's true that you can do one set of credentials and work from a few places within an agency, but if you were to work for a hospital, that's a totally different story. You do have to do the credentialing over and over again. The travel agency business has boomed in the last year. $13 billion was spent in travel agency last year in the U.S. alone. Our hospital contracts, they spend $2 to $3 million a month in agency nurses. So it's the shortage has gotten pretty dire to the point where a large portion of their budget's going towards nurses that can fill empty shifts, and which is agency nurses. So that's that piece of the question. And then the second piece you asked about, what you asked about I don't remember the second piece now, the question, but I remember thinking, oh wait, I need to correct that travel agency idea.
Oh, well, I was just saying, part of it was saying, I wasn't realizing how far in advance that you might have needed to reach out in order to be able to work if you're traveling to another country or another, between hospital organizations, et cetera. But then I was just saying, the second part of the question was just, is the work there? But I think you answered both of the questions simultaneously, is that basically, absolutely the work is there. They just need the bodies to fill it and need to know that the bodies have the right qualifications in order to maintain patient safety, I guess.
Yes, and I think that kind of combines with our SNAP nurse model, because in our SNAP nurse model, you can filter by various filters to find the nurse that you want. The type of nurse, the degree, because you can have a BSN or a master's degree nurse, right. Type of specialty, and if they do like EMR records, to speak certain languages, and number of years of experience. And they also have reviews. So this is already in place, and this business already exists.
Yeah.
Adding, those filters to a credentialing system would be the next, let's just call it version 2 of this platform, where they could easily find just specifically the type of nurse they want. So in version 1, it's the nurses saying, here's my credentialing, access it with this token. Version 2, our hospitals actively going to the platform and using a set of filters, finding all the nurses they need to fill all of their empty shifts.
So it's almost like a recruitment platform in addition, just as far as, so I came out of payroll and human resource was what I did before I was in the blockchain space. And, I worked for a software company, and a lot of what we would be selling them for human resource information systems was the ability to filter by qualifications, to filter by, as you're weeding through applicants. So I think that's a pretty cool function. You can filter it down and specifically find exactly the credentials you need, and then I would assume be able to bring them from whatever location. Or is this more of a? So let me ask you that. With this system, is this the nurse is already going to a place, or is this the hospitals will have nurse will travel? Is it that sort of thing? Are hospitals sending out for people and saying, please come here to work? Or tell me.
Yeah, so the way that I've built the platform so far, or designed it, is that it can go both ways. So a nurse can actually send her credentials to a hospital for consideration, but her credentials have to be fully compliant to their standards. So no nurse can send to a hospital just unless they're fully actively credentialed.
Right.
And then on the other hand, a hospital can search using these filters to find just the nurse they want and send them a request to access their credentials, because of course there's sensitive information in there and they must have access. So once the nurse receives an access request, then they can accept it, and then the hospital can take a look at their entire file. Now, they will be able to see some things without paying, but in order to download the entire file, they actually do have to pay. So they'll see a few things, like what type of nurse they are, and some basic things of what. And most importantly, or kind of one of the things we're creating, maybe in a version, our MVP version 2, would be a trustability score. Can you hear me okay? Sorry, I had to plug my phone in. So.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
So there would be a trustability score assigned to the data, and that trustability score would tell the hospital how much they can trust that data based on the number of verifications and the number of documents that can be trusted that are in that file. So there will be a lot of information that they can have before they access the platform, but in order to have a fully credentialed nurse's file, they would have to pay.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I was just going to ask if want to get into the economics of the token. That's one thing I get a lot of people ask me lately, is just specifically when they're talking about projects, like, all right, this all sounds great, how does it make money? But I'd say it's pretty out there. Is that you're clearly, there's some revenue model built in with, do you guys get a piece of the percentage of each transaction, or tell me a little bit about the what's the revenue model for Nursetoken itself?
Josh, you want to handle that one?
Sure. So by providing the credentialing engine that both hospitals and nurses would need, we'd have both subscription and one-off revenue from users of the platform. We also would have some expectation of making revenue through facilities that wanted to purchase Nursetoken to use as incentives. Say if you hire a nurse 5 times and they get 5-star reviews or something like that, it can be an added bonus. But the core element of the revenue model is the credentialing platform and the service that we'd be providing to agencies, facilities, and the nurses themselves.
Makes sense. I mean, it seems like overall there's enough incentive for each side of each party to have a use for the platform. So.
Sure. Right, and this isn't a totally made-up idea. Non-blockchain credentialing platforms are out there. There's not a lot of them that specialize in the nurse environment. But from our experience at SnapNurse, we think we have a product that has a lot of demand on both sides, and that once you add in the advantages that accrue from using the blockchain, it'll be good for the healthcare system, the token, and the company overall.
So let's talk about this. So I've got some comments coming up in the chat here. There's somebody making a snarky comment about medical records on the blockchain being garbage, and so with that, part of what we've seen with a lot of these medical records on the blockchain is they're running into HIPAA hurdles. So I would imagine you guys probably have a similar sort of set of restrictions that you've got to work with. Is it the same kind of thing as far as just, I mean, are the nurses' credentials protected by the same kind of privacy protocols as HIPAA?
Yes, I mean, a couple things. One is we actually are right now in the process of adding 2 very important members to our board of Nursetoken, one of which is a JCAHO affiliated member. The JCAHO is actually the governing body for the U.S. in terms of establishing the standards of credentialing and making sure the HIPAA regulations are being followed. Mm-hmm. If you're in the hospital industry, you understand who JCAHO is. They do routine trips into your hospital and give you, either a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and you don't want to get a thumbs down.
Not.
The second one is AAA, which is the governing body for surgery centers, and we also have someone there that we've talked to coming on board with Nursetoken to just oversee, to make sure the credentialing standards and the privacy standards are being upheld.
Mm-hmm.
third, I want to mention that we actually already have a business that does nurse credentialing every single day.
Right.
That has, every kind of sensitive info on it, from drug urine screens to health physicals to background checks. I mean, we deal with private information every single day. So while people can say, oh, that's garbage, blah, 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 maybe they don't understand that this is what we do every single day. And also that we're not reinventing the wheel here. We will still keep all of the same security precautions in place, but just have a better system, make an improvement on the current system that we are already doing. So that's how I would answer that. And in terms of boiling the ocean, yes, I do believe there are some companies out there that might be attempting to do some boiling of the ocean in terms of they want to solve this or that in healthcare, and it's just right now it's obvious they're obviously probably not ready.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean they shouldn't be going down that road. For example, people like he's talking about health records or EMR. I do get it. I mean, it is a big project to do. We're not in that space, so I would definitely not confuse us with trying to do an EMR, because that's not anything of close to what we're doing.
That was my sentiment on that as well.
Yeah.
I also think it's important, this is Edwin, I think it's important to realize how are you going to use blockchain too, so that the records themselves may not exactly be on the blockchain. The blockchain is going to basically be there as an enhancement to guarantee that the records haven't been tampered with, right? So it's, if anything, it's going to be minimum HIPAA, and I think it's going to go beyond HIPAA standards in terms of security.
Do you anticipate at any point? So there's a number of different projects that are specifically trying to add scalability or at least data storage via the blockchain. Now, there's a number of projects, and I don't want to get into which ones are which, but a lot of them are basically kind of doing a similar thing where they're just using Amazon Web Services or Google, and they're cryptographically encoding the map to the data pieces. But then there's other ones that are actually trying to build robust enough blockchains to be able to handle the data and store the data on. Do you guys foresee at any point? I guess I'm making an assumption now, is that I'm assuming you're probably using centralized servers right now. The blockchain is, again, just acting as the map. So correct me if I'm wrong there. But if that is the way it's going, do you guys foresee at any point the desire or need to put the actual data itself in a blockchain and have it cryptographically protected that way? Or what are your thoughts there? Maybe particularly, Edwin, you might be able to speak to that.
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, this technology is an evolving, emerging technology. So as things change and adapt, we want to be ready to embrace what makes sense. But I think ultimately what you got to think about, what we think about again, is that the value proposition that we're proposing for these credentials is to give security to the hospitals and the surgery centers that, hey, this data is accurate, it's been verified, and it hasn't been tampered with. So that's really what the value is. And no one, like we said earlier, people on a business level, they don't really care if you're using blockchain or cloud or this buzzword or that buzzword. They just want to make sure, why should we trust you and why are you going to be different? And it is a differentiator. I'm not trying to, but the key thing is making sure that main purpose of ensuring the data is safe, secure, and trusted, right? That's the key thing. So if we can do that with a centralized database and having the records pointed back to in the blockchain, then that's what we're going to do. Now, as when we get further down, we might decide, hey, you know what, we can do more here, and we can do these other things that might be more interesting, and but we won't do it just because for the sake of doing it. We're just going to do it because if there's some real value proposition back to the customers and to the business.
Sure, makes sense. Obviously, no sense throwing good money after something that's not going to improve your client experience, of course. But so we've got more snarkers over here on the saying the existing centralized system works fine. Why do nurses need a token? I think we've kind of touched on that, right? As portability of the credentials for one.
Incentives.
To say ability to settle out your payment immediately. right?
There's also the added trustability of being able to access prior facilities that have validated the credentialing components. Lots of times, as Cherie mentioned earlier, facilities even within the same network will require the same document over and over. And so what we're hoping to sell clients on, and that we've received a lot of good feedback on, is that some of these things like licenses and prior work history can be used over and over rather than completely redone every time, and eliminate a lot of repetitive processes that slow down getting nurses into facilities.
Yeah, I think it's also not. It's not really accurate. I mean, the current system, it doesn't work just fine. The current system is very time intensive, paper intensive, tedious, laborious. It takes a lot of time, and you have to do it over and over again. And you still have the issue of, can I trust this data? It isn't just fine. It is what it is, and then people accept it and move on. But it's a very inefficient, ineffective process. So that's where the real value proposition is again.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I do think, as Edwin mentioned, as the technology evolves, the blockchain technology evolves, and there are more apps to integrate with. I do see some private blockchain pieces to connect to a public blockchain model, and those things would be the 5 things that are the most troublesome in the credentialing space, right? Work verifications, education verification, background check, and digital identity, right? And there's a lot of people in that space, and so there are a lot of great potential apps for us to integrate with. So we're super excited about getting some partners to work with in those areas, and having those particular verifications potentially in a blockchain, a private blockchain type form.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that are maybe not as vested in the technology that are interested in this space, I'll say it that way, I think are, they see the internet as it works today. And I mean, I'm guessing you guys are somewhere in my age bracket that you remember a world before the internet, and remember when dial-up internet was the worst thing in the world, even though it was the best and only thing there was. And now we've gotten to the point where we carry around supercomputers in our pocket that we can look at everything from hardcore science to cat videos. So I think as the blockchain infrastructure continues to develop and become more robust, obviously we will see. We don't know what the killer app is yet, right? Because it took until the iPhone got invented for many different things that have made the internet far superior to what they were 10 years ago. So
I can tell you that. I can tell you just on that point that at my old company, when we built ICE, when we were a startup 20 years ago, there was a lot of people that said, the current model works fine, and we're very resistant to moving to electronic trading, much less the internet. People said the internet would never work for trading electronically. No one's ever going to do $1 million, oil trade over the internet. And now you look at ICE is the largest financial market in the world, where it's $42 billion. So it's a good thing we didn't listen to them.
Yeah, exactly. So let's.
And we don't want to over promise and under deliver too. We know we want to execute on a product, and we want to roll out at least a first iteration and get that going, and then add more and more features to it, whether that means incorporating more features of the blockchain or whatever that might be, more integrations. We want to start with our first product and make sure that we're not one of those companies that promises the world and then gets everyone to buy in on it and can't even execute on the first version.
That's what I like to hear. That's such a problem in this space, is that so many people come to market with a white paper and an idea and raise a bunch of money, and then nothing ever happens. And I think that's why we get these guys up here that are going screaming scam about every new ICO that comes out, because so many of them unfortunately have been, or even the ones that looked like they were going to be successful, sort of took the money and ran. There's a number of projects that well, we don't need to name names, but yeah, that was part of what I liked about it. You already have an existing business and have just decided to kind of tokenize it and utilize the knowledge base that you have and the experience and connections that you have to move it over into the blockchain space. So I think, I'm always big on saying adoption is the key to the success of any of these projects. So having a foot off head start with SnapNurse, I think, is probably a good thing in the long run for you guys. So I don't want to take up your whole day here, but I did have a couple more questions. If you got a few more minutes, I was just curious. Let's talk about NEO, right? You guys decided to be an NEP5 token. Let's talk about that. Why did you guys decide to go with NEO? How has your experience been building with them? Do you have any fear of their current token price, etc.? If you did your raise in NEO, let's talk about that. A lot of companies are like fire sailing their ETH that they did their raise in over the last couple of weeks. So, we obviously know what NEO's token price has done of recent times. Has that affected your operational outlook or anything?
Right. So as Josh mentioned in the it's how we got into this space is because he was one of the first investors in the first ICO on NEO. And a couple years ago, I guess it was less than 2 years ago, he went to a New York meetup, where they had like 5 people pitching some NEO projects, and one of them was Red Pulse, and it was just starting to get traction. There was maybe, like I said, 15 people there, but everyone there was just on fire. They were super excited. They were enthusiastic. This was like the most enthusiastic developer community. Then fast forward to NEO DevCon in San Francisco, where it was standing room only. This just months later. And standing room only, just wall-to-wall projects and really exciting things. The City of Zion, give a shout out to them. They've done an amazing job building the NEO community and amazing projects coming down the pike. What an enthusiastic community. They all support each other, and they also help each other maintain value in their tokens. For example, we were thinking about doing a higher raise, and we were kind of counseled by the City of Zion, keep everything under 20 million so that you don't pop your token price, and all these different things that they advise us on, kind of guide us to the Ontology platform because of our private blockchain and database type structured, connected to a public blockchain, and they are the same owners, so it's kind of like about the same community, very close community. A lot of the NEO dev guys have actually gone to work onto the Ontology platform as well. And even was invited out to Shanghai to meet with Ontology. So
that's cool.
Josh and I actually went to Shanghai and sat in the Ontology office with all of the dev guys and saw their office, connected with them and discussed our platform and how it might work. So we just feel like we're part of their family. And so even if their value goes down, we've just remained, loyal to that, because I guess we feel the most connection to that community and have received the most attention and help. I mean, we've reached out to a couple other blockchains and just have had like very little response or lackluster response. But with NEO and Ontology, it's always been very enthusiastic, and so we want to be, we want to stay part of their community. Be one of the first, not first, I'm going to say first, but one of the really strong tokens that actually exist on the NEO platform. So Ontology platform, but we're doing our raise on the NEO platform.
Right.
One of the things I do want to mention, though, that I do think is, the whole market is down, but I do think the NEO token has great potential, and that is because of some of the platforms coming out. As you know, there's a platform called NEX, or the Neon Exchange, NEX.
Our community has been very excited about that for some time.
Yeah, and it's in beta now, and they were talking about that at the Neo DevCon, and I thought, you know, we were all saying, wow, if that actually, if they're able to make that work, as complicated as that would be, but if they're able to make that work and go live, the idea of fiat to neo, neo to fiat is going to revolutionize the way you know, people use the blockchain, because it's so complicated right now, you know, to get even Ethereum doesn't have that. So I think that if once that gets, you know, pumped out there and it starts to work, I think you're going to see a lot of platforms move to the Neo platform, and also you're going to see a lot of real adoption occurring, because, you know, suddenly you're able to, you know, have a platform actually convert easily to fiat. So we're super excited. We want to support that as much as we can, and looking at potentially doing like airdrops to the Neo community and ontology. Just excited to be a part of their family. So awesome. That's why.
Well, that sounds great. I mean, yeah, that's as good a reason as any. Is, you know, you reached out, interacted, like the community, and they actually support you. I mean, I don't know what more reason you need, really. So, and certainly ontology's been a very hot prospect of late. So I'm sure that should help the buzz. We have a user on here saying, I see the use case. So now, how do you sell clients and get more people on board? What are your plans for that? So, if without giving away any trade secrets, of course, if you guys could talk about a little bit about, you know, what do you plan to do to help scale the adoption?
Yeah, so we're already, as you know, there are many different ways to connect with nurses. One, we can do partnerships with other agencies, which we're already in talks with the top 3 agencies right now in the U.S. With potentially licensing our platform for SnapNurse. So those very same connections would also give us access, or help, want us to actually manage potentially their credentialing as well. So we could do partnerships with different agencies. We could help hospitals with their largest pain points, which is the credentialing. And once we get the nurses on board and excited about it, that's how the adoption will actually occur, because whoever has the nurses has the power, right? And if we put the power in the hands of the nurses, everyone will follow. You have a commodity like nurses, a shortage like nurses. If they, you know, control this platform and embrace it as their own, which is what, you know, my message is to them, sure, is this is for you guys, you nurses, which is, by the way, the largest workforce in the world. You have to embrace this platform, and you have to make this the go-to credentialing platform, because if you go there, everyone will follow. And so driving the nurses to the platform, incentivizing them to keep all their credentials updated there, plus giving them a value, because the value add is they don't have to keep doing this over and over again. So for them, it gives them value in multiple ways. And that's why they're so excited about this platform. So getting the word out to the nurses, I believe it will go viral once we launch, because of the very the fun, like, crypto element to it. But beyond that, it's partnerships with large agencies that have, you know, 100,000 plus nurses. We are also been connected to the Philippine community in the U.S.
I was just going to say that would be a great move.
Oh yeah,
that's a huge export for the Philippines is nurses.
Oh yes, yeah, we're actually having a meeting with the top person in the U.S. in terms of the Philippine Nursing Association here in the U.S., and so we're hoping to get some traction there.
Awesome.
and connect with, actually 2 of our SNAP nurse employees are going to the Philippines in 2 weeks. And so that is super exciting. We're looking not only to work with them in terms of SNAP nurse, but also in terms of Nursetoken. So the Philippines is definitely somewhere, the second market we want to hit. As Philippine nurses comprise over 20% of the world's nurses. I don't think people realize that, but
yeah,
it's huge.
It's crazy. I mean, I'm from the Bay Area originally. I live in Los Angeles now, but massive Filipino community just in the Bay Area in general. But yeah, I can tell you that the majority of nurses, anytime I went to a hospital in the Bay Area, definitely Filipino. So I knew that was I knew they had a high concentration of nurses from that country.
No, absolutely. And this platform is global. We want this platform to first roll out in the U.S., Philippines, and UK, Canada, and then to other developing countries. As in my video, you have even nurses from Nigeria are coming over to the U.S. to work. I mean, this migration of nurses going from country to country to fill empty shifts is all a result of the nursing shortage, and for the U.S. to be in other developing countries to be getting desperate enough really to now look outside of their own walls and reach out to the world and ask for help. And so this is what's occurring now. There couldn't be a better time to roll out Nursetoken. It literally is on the already prime for such a platform. If you think about the U.S., every state used to have their own credentials.
Right.
And recently, in the last few years, they've rolled out the compact state licensure here in the U.S., where now 21 or 22 states have now adopted instantly, which is that if you have like a Georgia state license, you can work in like 21 other states in the U.S. because which shows you where this is all going. It's going to a universalized set of credentials because they're no longer going to tolerate this 3 to 4 month process of getting a state credential. They can't do it because the shortage is so great. So the U.S. has even adopted within its own walls the ability for nurses to go from state to state without a new license. A lot of people kind of poo-poo, oh, that's never going to happen. What about state licenses? And I said, well, that's funny you should say that. The trend is turning, and so the time for Nursetoken is really right now.
Well, necessity is the mother of invention, so I'm happy to see that people are innovating and trying to make improvements in systems that clearly need improvements. So it's very cool that you guys have spotted out this opportunity. Happy to know you're excited about getting into blockchain technology, as so many people are afraid of it, and especially so many people are a little soured on it after from December till now. Too many people got in at the high and are a little raw about it. So it's great. I think this kind of thing is just further goes to show legitimate companies trying to do legitimate work and utilizing the technology should hopefully help spread the greater message and again, like to Edwin's point, I guess people don't care whether or not it's blockchain or not as long as it works. But I'm happy to see solid projects that are trying to make it work. So happy to have you guys on, and I appreciate you sharing time with me today. Is there anything else we need to go over? Anything else we didn't touch on that you guys want to speak out to the audience before we wrap it up here?
I guess I'd just like to make the last comment that we're actually going to build this blockchain with or without an ICO. And so I would just, like to say that this is an existing business, then we're building a really robust business in the credentialing space. So, if you're going to put your trust in a company actually executing, if we can't do it, I'll be hard pressed to see if anyone else can do it. As cocky as that sounds, I believe that our team is so strong and we have such strong knowledge in this particular sector of medicine, the health staffing sector, that I would be, so you can count on, if we can't do it, no one can do it. So we're very excited to roll out Nursetoken and to build a very robust business and a strong token.
Well, I'm happy to hear it. I think, like I said, I thought you guys were super cool people when we met, and I like what you're doing. So I'm happy to help spread the word a little bit. And again, this is the kind of thing with so many out there that people are just screaming scam at every ICO. I think that is a huge reinforcement right there. You're building it whether the ICO happens or not. That's huge. Again, existing business, huge. Experience in the space, huge. In my opinion, Edwin brings a pretty nice amount of gravitas to the organization. So, I think you guys are doing great things, and I'm happy to help support however I can. So, thanks for coming on today, guys. I really appreciate you making time.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Sure thing. And, keep us posted if you guys have updates or anything else. Happy to have you back on, and maybe we'll come back on once the market turns around, and we'll have a little more exciting chat going on. But anyways, guys, I appreciate your time today, and stay in touch. Let us know how else we can help. Always happy to serve our community. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.